Good evening on your Thursday. I'm Geoenvironmental Atmosphere Student Forecaster Andrew Fleck to give you a briefing on the heavy rain that swept through the Mid-Atlantic region the past 48 hours, and it dumped some historical flooding in some spots. We'll give you a bit of a briefing on that especially, but first off, we'll look at the radar, and it's not as lit up as it has been for the past 48 hours, that being the rain is starting to diminish, and that is good news for those areas that have been inclined with much flooding. Again, now what's beginning to happen is we have an upper level low sitting here, and that's going to bring some of these leftover rain showers closer and back west. So toward western PA, toward West Virginia and Virginia. Again, some of that rain is going to be pushing back west again. Closer to eastern Pennsylvania, just some lighter showers. It's not going to contribute much to the flooding there. Again, we'll even talk about the threat that exists along the Delaware River and especially the Susquehanna, with that being said. Also, we have offshore Katia. That hurricane is beginning to sweep offshore now. It did bring a little bit of rain bands very close to the region here, but again, as I said, Katia would keep most of the winds, most of the rain offshore as it continues that track off to the east-northeast. Now, as for rain totals, this past 48 hours, 54 hours, historic in some places, people. We're looking at above north-central Pennsylvania, 10 inches in some spots here is what radar has indicated. Further down that whole axis, anywhere from 3 at the least, 10 inches at the most. Again, this rivals 2006, and in fact, even goes over and by 2006 with some of these rain totals. Again, this is something that is historic in many ways. We have not seen this much rain out of a system since that year of 2006 and Agnes. So, times come and go, but this is one that I think many people will remember, and many people are dealing with the flooding today as we go through this video. Toward eastern Pennsylvania, because I'm going to be showing you two forecasted river maps on the next few slides. Again, I'll be showing you the central PA one and also the eastern PA one, because there's a little bit of flooding that should be taking place, and there's another area or another river basin where the flooding should not be as bad as what it's forecasted to be, and there's a few variables due to that. The first, though, being again the heavy rain over central PA. When you have amounts of that, things are going to flood, okay? But over eastern Pennsylvania, that Delaware River basin, I'm not sure if it should be flooding the forecasted levels that it should be at. It's going to. They're at flood stage, they're at moderate stage, and forecasted for major stage. But really looking at the basin here, it starts about here. You have a reservoir up in this area, another one up in this area, and really no rain in this axis here, only about a half an inch to an inch and a half at best, and then maybe 1 or 2 inches here. Really down the whole stem, there hasn't been too much of a significant rainfall as what you'd see here on a map for central Pennsylvania. Again, there is a variable that I'll talk about. That is the reasoning to some eastern Pennsylvania, Delaware River Basin flooding. So before we go and do that, let's just take a look at the central Pennsylvania forecasted flooding map. And in this purple here, this is where the major flooding is going to take place. That's right up where that axis is, where that anywhere from 3 to 8 to perhaps 10 inches is. And that's in this axis here, that Susquehanna River Basin. And it is definitely a time for flooding up in this area. Again, historical amounts have hit, Hershey being one of them, and of course up in north-central Pennsylvania, a few creeks, a few rivers flowing much out of their banks still at this time. Many people evacuated, and that's going to continue, but hopefully by the weekend things will start to recede, people can move back in and clean up from what has flooded. As we head more to the northeastern Pennsylvania, New York area, we'll show you that even the heaviest rain for the north-central Pennsylvania basin started up in south-central New York. That's where some of those basins begin here, and that major, that starts from New York, moves all the way into PA here, Wilkes-Barre, and continues on. So again, that's really the axis of where the heaviest rain has been, and those rivers are telling the story. Further east into northeast PA and southwestern New York, you'll see for the Delaware River Basin, which, as I wanted to explain a few variables that play into the reason why things are flooding, you will see that we have the one reservoir, Cannonsville, the other one of Pequoton, and we do have another one off here called Roundout. And as I explained, there's maybe only about 2 inches around Cannonsville and Pequoton, and for some reason that flooded those reservoirs. And there was really not much rain in this area. And then further down the stem, and I'll show you on the next map here, there was, again, from that earlier map, not much rain that really went over the basin. But you look at a few points here, Tox Island being one, Easton being one, Riegelsville, Stanton, and further down, there seems to be areas going into moderate to major stage, or forecasted to. It doesn't make sense to the reason we would have reservoirs upstream only receiving a couple inches of rain, causing them to flood, having not much rain falling downstream, and having those to almost moderate and major flooding. So something went wrong there, and I'm not sure what it exactly was, but if those areas in that basin was able to get over the rains from Hurricane Irene last week, but was not able to get over rains from the remnants of Tropical Storm Lee this week, which, by the way, left less rain along this basin, why would this flood more? So that is the question that we are looking at. But personally, at an unbiased level, I think the reservoirs up further stream had something to do with this. Many rain events have we had before, and this has never really happened. So somewhere up further north into the reservoirs, they must have kept things to a higher length. They must have not been releasing. 2 inches of rain basically caused things to flood, and hence you see the results downstream. So that's really what we have here, folks. A lot of rain has fallen in the past 48 to 54 hours. The good news is much of it is diminishing, much of it is moving out of the area. Again, that historical flooding over central Pennsylvania, a few areas though too in New York and Virginia and Maryland. So we're just going to have to continue to shake our leg off with this one. Everybody who's evacuated, stay out of those areas until the rain and the flooding does diminish, and you'll be able to get in there and do your cleanup to what and where you have to be. So I hope everybody is safe. I hope everybody follows according to procedure, and the good news, at least for the next 2 or 3 days, is we won't have any flooding threat like this. But bad news, though, that comes with that is we do have 2 tropical systems that were newly formed this week, one being Tropical Storm Nate, that's correct, and also Tropical Storm Maria in the Atlantic. So 2 storm systems out there, maybe posing a threat to more rain. We'll have to check out the weather setup and explain to you if anything needs to be watched. So I'm Geoenvironmental Atmosphere Student Forecaster Andrew Fleck. Have a good afternoon. Stay dry.